Testing, 1, 2, 3. I need to make sure that the audio is good. Yeah, it is. Okay. And let's see. YouTube. Hi, Man Cave. Hi, Katalia. I see you on YouTube. And you know what? We haven't done an X space in months. It's been over 2 months. Honey, when you stop doing X spaces, I wasn't like pressed to come back on. Neither was the judge. So what we gonna talk about? Jimmy Carter, legacy, HB, H1B visas, Trump certified, and anything else. I can hear. Okay, thank you, Music World Wonder. Hi, Sexy Ra. So it's gonna take a minute for people to spill on in. What is this? No, no, it doesn't matter. All right, let me see what it looks like. Okay, that's what it looks like there. Yeah, so um, just waiting for the judge to come on. He did tweet it out. It's been a minute since we did a space. Hi, new party. And you know what? I don't even like going in on other people's spaces no more. Listen, I think I'm gonna leave X Space in 2024. And it's not because, oh, it's overwhelming. No. It's just because I got so much other stuff going on and I don't need to add X space. I'm still trying to figure out how to get into that X algorithm. So, but these X spaces are not even for me. It's really the judge space. And he's been busy. He's been busy. He hasn't really been wanting to do spaces. And honestly, the direction of where the space is going and the conversations, it is going to be more about politics, more about action, not about victimhood. And a lot of people are going to get upset and they're going to get annoyed, but I'm sorry, leave all that victimhood in 2024. And I hate saying that 2024 type thing, but it's true. I don't want to hear nothing about any type of oppression if you don't have an action plan attached to it. Let's see. Hi, Kennedy Law, 70 DRC, Barb, New Nobody. All right, where is he at? Let me call him to tell him to come on. Um, and then too, I'm tired of. We did a live yesterday on YouTube, and even with that, we're down to like one live a week, and I just want to do more pre-record and upload, see how that goes. But I'm tired of the waiting. I don't want to deal with his Wi-Fi being slow. I just don't want to deal with that. Let's see. I appreciate your video on the H1B and how it affected you and your colleagues. Hello. Yeah. All right. Are you coming on?
I see you got 4 people in. I'm trying to get on.
Okay.
All right, ciao.
All right. He'll be on shortly. Yeah. Thank you, Music World. I appreciate your video on H1B and how it affected you and your colleagues. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. And you know what? I think I'm going to start sharing more stories because we need to hear more real life stories on how this H1B visa is affecting Americans. So I really appreciate that you guys enjoyed it. That video is doing very well. And I need to get into the habit of talking more so I could practice my execution when I'm recording myself or even when I'm live streaming. So on this channel, and I'm actually it's the Real Judge Joe Brown channel, and I created that YouTube channel when he was running for mayor. But that's been over since 2 years. So I'm really going to dedicate this channel to all immigration, illegal migrants, the borders are, and all the other stuff. Oh, here he goes. And let me send you a co-host. I sent you a co-host invite. Did you get it? Why they went down a listener? What is this? All right. I saw you request, and now you drop back down a listener. What happened? You're gonna have to request again, Judge. I don't know what happened. There you go.
He dropped off twice.
Yeah. Okay, I can hear you now. How are you
All right.
tonight?
Doing fine, doing
When was
fine.
the last time you did a space? 3 months ago?
Not quite.
Almost. But I was just telling people that you've been busy, I've been busy, and then two, you know, you kind of don't want to talk about the same old thing. It's really about action right about now. No victimhoodness.
Tired of victimhood. It's tedious.
So I'll put in the title Jimmy Carter legacy, the H1B visa, Trump being certified, and it was a couple other things that we mentioned earlier. You said you wanted to touch on. So I didn't know if you still want to do open mic or you just want to stick to these topics.
We can do open mic. It doesn't make any difference. General topics is suggested to subjects to cover, but whatever's on your mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if anybody want to come up and request to speak, ask a question or make a comment or whatever, please do so at any time. And we'll just see where the night take us. So where you want to start? Do you want to start with Jimmy Carter legacy? He's dead, and
Yeah, it's. I think that's a very misunderstood president. He got elected in 1976, and his predecessor was Jerry Ford, who was, well, he got into the office of president in a weird way. Nixon had been busted for Watergate. Spiro Agnew had been indicted in Maryland and under the federal system. Agnew was the vice president. He turned in his resignation. What wound up happening is the minority leader for the House, who was Jerry Ford, of the same party as Nixon, became the vice president, and he entered into an agreement with Tricky Dick Nixon, and Nixon resigned, and Ford pardoned him. And when Carter ran in 1976, this was just 2 years after Watergate, 1974, and it was horrendous because the country just became disillusioned with itself, disappointed with itself, and no longer trusted itself. And this was approximately 3 years after the NOM had wound down and ended. So there was a very strong anti war thing going on at the time. And what took Carter down was this thing with the U.S. Embassy in Iran being captured by extremists. And they tried to pull off a military rescue, but the military had been downgraded and ignored thanks to the NOM reaction. And it was a complete, utter disaster. Also, there was this thing with the Shah of Iran having been solicited by the uh, Secretary of State for the United States, Henry Kissinger, who had also been in that office for the Johnson administration, the Nixon administration, and had been considered for that position by the previous Kennedy administration. Well, he solicited the Shah of Iran, and as a result of that, there was a meeting. They set up OPEC. Thanks to Kissinger again, they called another meeting and they engineered an oil crisis, which drove up the price of oil and gas significantly, which generated inflation, which knocked down people's debt loads. And there was a real live mess that Carter was actually turning around economically. And when all of that went down, it was a poisonous thing. And he caught hell for it. And Ronald Reagan swept in on this promise of we will restore America's morale, which he essentially did. But there were some severe problems with the economy, and this homeless thing started at that point because so many people lost their shirts and everything else. Now, I'll get to the final commendation for Carter, and it's this. When Reagan and Carter were running against each other, they kept talking about Reagan being the war hero submarine captain. And he had done a propaganda movie in World War II that was called Run Silent, Run Deep. And they reissued it after the war. But Jimmy Carter actually graduated #1 in his class from Annapolis, the Naval Academy. And he was a captain of a nuclear attack submarine. And he did the Hunt the Red October for real, chasing Soviet boomers around under the Arctic ice cap. And then he commanded a nuclear ballistic missile submarine. And he wound up being the Commodore in charge of the Northeast Atlantic U.S. nuclear missile submarine fleet. So he was the real deal. Then he retired and went into peanut farming. But he's a nice guy. I had the privilege of talking to him for about 30 minutes, and he's the kind of guy that you wouldn't mind sitting down and drinking a beer with. But let's just say that there was insufficient attention paid to the military, and that might be attributable to the anti-military mood of the country at the time, even though the Cold War was hot. But it was what it was. So
You also
he
said
was
that
president.
I remember you saying that he was the right guy, but at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's the thing. If it had been another kind of situation, he would have been a hell of a president. See,
Which
politics
time would have been the right time?
somewhere when Kennedy was the president in the early 60s, or somewhere when George Herbert Walker Bush was president. George Herbert Walker Bush was somewhat similar to Carter in one sense, but coming from a different angle. There were expectations, but what it took to appeal to folk wasn't what was required to turn things around. So you have one term, Jimmy Carter, who was a naval sub captain, and you had George Herbert Walker Bush, who has a unique distinction. He was, in fact, the youngest combat pilot in the U.S. military for World War II. And he was pilot for a TBF torpedo bomber, and it got shot down by the Japanese. The rest of his three-man crew perished. He survived and just managed to reach a rocky outcrop that allowed him to be picked up by a Navy rescue attempt some days after he got shot down. So it is what it is. Jimmy Carter got a nuclear submarine named after him, a super attack craft, one of the three in the Seawolf class. And Bush got an aircraft carrier named after him, which is the newest U.S. aircraft carrier, the George Walker Bush, which is still not quite fully operational 10 years late. So there you go. Little history lesson.
Okay. So R.I.P. Jimmy Carter. Maybe I should have put in the title Trump Greenland, honey, because he's trying to buy Greenland, and then he wants to change the Gulf name instead of Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. It's going to be interesting this term. But so if anybody want to request to come up to talk about the topic
By the
or anything
way,
else,
we bought Alaska from the Russians, so it's not unusual to buy Greenland from Greenland. But, it is what it is.
oh, we did buy Alaska. We bought Alaska from Russia. I mean, it's right there in the middle.
I mean, yeah, we bought it from Russia
Oh, I didn't know that. When was this? How long ago?
back in the 19th century.
That would be the 1800s.
Yeah.
Oh,
And we also, don't forget the Louisiana purchase. We purchased all that land from France.
right. So, okay, but there's nothing in Greenland. So why do you think he wants to buy Greenland?
Well, there's heavy volcanic activity. It's right in the middle of everything. It sets up a good base, sort of a unsinkable aircraft carrier, which would be good for uh, operation of submarines, communications stations, satellite communications, a number of things like that. Uh,
Hmm.
thermovolcanic production of energy.
No oil.
Maybe. Unknown factor in terms of it's not subject to exploitation because of the weather conditions.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of icy and snowy there for a good number of months out of the year.
His son just went there. That it was a 1 day trip. He flew there and flew back. So a lot of times you have to show initiative when you really want something. But is it the president or prime minister or whoever the leader of Greenland said that it's not for sale?
Nah, I know. But it's kind of a situation. What was it with the Godfather? Yeah, you make him an offer you can't refuse.
Well,
Eh?
what would that offer be?
Well, think about it. They can become part of the United States of America and they get all of the benefits that go along with that.
And what about Canada becoming a part of United States?
I think one of the worst long term mistakes the United States ever made was when the War of 1812 was concluded. They had an opportunity and free access to go right on into Canada and absorb it as a territory, which they failed to do and they should have done.
Hmm. Interesting.
That would have solved a lot of problems and made the North American continent stronger.
So, is it to our benefit to make Canada a 50? That would be the 51st state.
Not necessarily. You already have some areas that would correspond to states, Quebec, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, up in Canada. It would be a territory. Like the Louisiana Purchase was divvied up into a number of states.
Oh,
Illinois,
yes, yes, yes. That is true.
yeah.
But isn't part of Canada somewhat French?
Yes. In fact, by statutory authority in Canada, all of the street signs, labels, and stuff have to be printed in both English and French. It's kind of
Mm.
clumsy, but it is
Hmm.
what it is.
But it's all under British sovereignty.
Yes, they're part of the British Commonwealth, and they are considered subjects of the monarchy or the English monarch.
So we would need the
It's too
British.
late to do that now, but
That's what I'm saying. Wouldn't Britain have to say, okay, yeah, you can have
yeah,
it, but
but
they're not going to give it up.
it's not going to happen now.
It's like people, Americans, we take any damn thing and make it trend, no matter how ludicrous it is. We have a speaker. Call. Hi. You got to mute.
Hi, I just wanted to ask a question to the judge. Um, do you think it's legal for, let's say, international laws permit the United States to invade Greenland?
Nobody's talking about invading Greenland. The United States would not conduct an invasion. The last time we did that, it was concerning Cuba and then the Philippines, and as a result, we got Puerto Rico, St. Croix, St. Thomas, part of the Virgin Islands, which are now part of the territories of the United States. We got the Philippines, which we let go, although we retained the military bases. We captured Cuba, and we still have a naval military base there, Guantanamo. So might makes right. It always has, and that goes back thousands of years to Egypt, Mesopotamia, Rome, you name it. But I don't think we're going to invade Greenland.
There's nothing. Yeah, like I don't. Yeah.
If they want to sell themselves or ask to become part of the territories or protectorates of the United States, that's cool. We have as protectorates American Guam, parts Guam, American Samoa. We have as territories of the United States, we have the uh, administrative district out of Puerto Rico, which includes the American Virgin Islands, and former territories included everything from Illinois when uh, Abraham Lincoln was born there. We had the territory of Tennessee, Davy Crockett, Andrew Jackson. You had a number of some of the famous people in the early republic came out of Tennessee, but it was a territory. It was a territory of North Carolina, interestingly enough. So territories have a long history. The last territory we made state was Hawaii, and before that, Alaska, and at the early part of the 20th century, Oklahoma. And closely proximate to that, Arizona and New Mexico.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Carl?
No, I'm fine. I'm listening. Thank you.
So H1B visas. I think that was 2 weeks ago, and it was trending for about 2 weeks, but it started 2 weeks ago. People were upset with that and Elon Musk, and I think it's time for Elon Musk to just go sit down in a corner somewhere. But now you have this discussion, which is an evergreen discussion of H1B visas, and I actually did a video where I talked about my firsthand experience being replaced by H1B visas when I worked for corporate. Now, at the very, very last minute, my one position was somewhat saved. However, it was thousands of other positions that were gone to bring in, being replaced by H1B visas, people who were here and work that was being exported out to India. And a lot of Americans, have a problem with H1B visas. And I do believe, me personally, that a lot of these corporations abuse it and they probably prefer it because they do save money. So, did you want to give your thoughts on this whole H1B visa debate or
It's like, imagine
system?
a professional athletic team, and you get the draft. Who do you pick as your first round pick? You get somebody that can improve the team. So when you're talking about the visas, the idea was for a very long time no wide open borders, but you had a visa citizenship immigration hierarchy that kind of ranked people in order of who could do what for the country. See, right now, we would not have our position in the world as a military if it weren't for Albert Einstein, his theory of relativity, and hypothesizing what led to the atomic and then hydrogen bombs or thermonuclear weaponry. And he was a refugee, but he was favored. Nor after the war would we have had that situation with us being able to not just get into the space race, but to come up with a viable arsenal of intercontinental ballistic missiles, intermediate range missiles, submarine launched ballistic missiles, nor getting to the moon with Apollo missions, thanks to Werner von Braun, who was a Nazi, who was allowed in because it was said we'll make an exception because he can help the country out. So he sustained the United States being able to be at the top of the heap during the Cold War. So you have Einstein, a former German, invents thermonuclear devices that become the ultimate deterrent. And you have another German, Werner von Braun, who comes up with the delivery system. So you have this thing where out of the whole world, you have a pool of the top performers. And it's just like with a university, or at least the way they used to do. They would go around trying to recruit people from all over the world to be on their teaching staffs who had something to contribute, and the universities would vie to see who had the heaviest professors on their faculties. Same thing with the visa thing. Now, uh, the attention that's being brought to the immigration business has been somewhat skewed because of this thing of just letting anybody in, and that's not cool at all. So the idea is to keep a fresh pool of, well, a fresh pool of humanity that can do something and give them an opportunity to come here. Right now, we have a thing that's skewed toward India because India is the second most populous country on the planet following China. And you have many, many more Indians and many, many more Chinese than you do Americans. Like take China, 1,320 some million, and the U.S. just has 340 to 360 million people, and China has 1 billion more. Our policy is you put yourself in hock for 10 to 15 years to go through college, which might not be very productive for you when you come out. And we tend to do everything we can to discourage people getting in college, and we encourage people to deal with vocational stuff and anything but going to college. But China has 1 billion more people, And in China, if you don't go to college, then you're knee high in water up to your bare knees in shit fertilized rice paddies or working in a very dangerous or hazardous factory. So they will pay for your entire education as far as you can get. So there's an incentive to go as far as you can to escape the rice paddy. And they have a billion more people than we do, so they have a higher number of persons who can contribute to their technological pool. And India, next behind it in population, has a very stratified society. It has caste all the way down to the horrible untouchables, the untouchability thing they have, which is poisonous, and they're trying to spread it to the U.S. But you can look at the stats. They have the highest per capita incomes in the United States. That's because they get deep off into science, technology, engineering, and math. And what gets left in India are the ones that sit on the side of the roadway and wipe their anuses with their left hands when they defecate. So we've been attempting to attract their best. Look at the uh, Dodge co-chair Vivek, and you can see it. Look at the vice president candidate, the unsuccessful one, Kamala. And by the way, Kamala is the name of a Hindu goddess. And you can see this. Vance, the successful vice presidential candidate, he's married to an Indian. So you're going to get a lot of people coming from there. And they've been favored for a long time to come in. A lot of people claim it's racist, but then there's another way of looking at it. It's like people aren't favored who come in and they're subsistence farmers and they don't have anything to add to science, technology, engineering, math, law, philosophy, or something like that. So it's a 19th century thing, as exemplified by the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island. Give us your poor, your downtrodden. We don't want that anymore. We've got enough of those, and poor and downtrodden got severely tested on a very dangerous frontier, and the ones that couldn't cut it didn't survive. Literally, they got killed. So we don't have that testing ground anymore. So ideally, the policy with immigration is bring the people in who can improve the team.
Well,
But that's gone out the window.
all right. So before I'm gonna bring Debbie in, and then I'll comment. Go ahead, Debbie. Debbie, you can unmute unless you press. Did you press speaker by accident or no?
Oh, there we go. Can you
Okay.
hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. A couple of points. When America got the rocketry scientists from Germany, like von Braun, and they said, "Well, where did you learn this?" And they said, "What do you mean? We learned it from Robert Goddard, from your country."
Sure.
And they went, "Who? Robert Goddard. He's the father of rocketry." And the government had no clue because they totally ignored the guy,
Sure.
which was crazy.
Have you ever heard of the T-34 tank, the famous Soviet tank that was one of the key technological factors in beating back the fascists in World War II?
You mean the ones from the factory that the U.S. helped build?
No, the U.S. didn't have a damn thing to do with building them, but it had the Christie suspension. The U.S. generals didn't like Christie, the inventor, so he wound up going to Russia, sold the item over there, and the Russians turned it into the war-winning T-34 tank that was the basis for most of their armor all the way through the current T-90 that they have. So we turned that down back in the early 1930s.
Well, I mean, Tesla created a weapon that he said would knock all airplanes out of the sky. because he was trying to stop World War II from happening, and said, "Hey,
World War III.
I've got this." And
Oh, you mean the Tesla? Okay.
yeah, the Tesla, the
Yeah,
actual
you're
inventor.
right.
And he said, "Hey, I've got this. Um, you want to see? It'll help keep war from starting because you can't make an aircraft attack if the planes are going to fall out of the sky." And the U.S. government said no. Great Britain
Well,
said
yeah.
no. Russia said yeah. They listened for a few minutes and then stopped. I mean, and now, mind you, Elon Musk has put the same kind of weapon in a plane. But yeah, America has a tendency to do that. And anymore, I don't know if you know this, but over 50% of STEM graduates in this country aren't Americans.
That's probably correct. Last time I went through my alma mater, UCLA, that's what the campus reflected when you took a look around.
So my
So,
question is, why are we seeing why do we see majority of people in STEM non-Americans?
Maybe we're choosing something other than STEM to get into, from growing fruits and vegetables on some land some mysterious group of people is supposed to donate, which isn't going to happen, to getting concerned about interior decoration, sports, and other distractions rather than focusing on science, technology, engineering, and math.
well, I think part of it might be I hear a lot of stuff about, well, women should get involved in STEM careers. And I say, wait a minute, the original computer programming language was created by a woman, because the term computer, you didn't used to be an object, it was a job title. You just sat and did mathematical equations all day, and a lot of them were women.
The original programming was put into a computer with punch cards. We used
Right.
to be very familiar with do not fold, spindle, nor
Spindle
mute.
or mutilate, correct.
And the development of what became the computer, there are a couple of people who are assigned the credit, and the general impetus for coming up with a computer was to predict weather. But
Right.
that turns out to be a matter that can only be predicted in general terms, but not specifically. Because literally, a butterfly flapping its wings in Central Park in New York can affect the weather in Peking, China, or Beijing, China.
Well,
Well,
so they say, but that's, the whole problem with that is we are actually not we're stopping people from going into STEM. A lot of high schools don't teach high level math anymore.
Sure, they don't. Agreed. And like, look at what's been dumbing down. The state of Washington no longer requires that lawyers pass a bar exam. They said it was too challenging to some. And considering the idiots that I've seen practicing law these days,
Mhm.
they need a stiffer bar exam. Look at Oregon. They don't teach cursive writing anymore. They don't require memorization of multiplication tables and don't teach multiplication and long division. So, what are we doing? A lot of states no longer require homework because it's too challenging to the students. So, what are we doing here? That's getting stuck on stupid. And the average person going to college is going to be in hock for at least a decade trying to pay it back and underpaid. That, by the way, was an interesting aspect of the so called debt forgiveness uh, for student loans. The limit was 125,000 per person. In other words, if you made over that, you weren't eligible for any relief. But the interesting
Mhm.
thing is the Labor Department declares that 125,000 a year per person is the level of income that the middle class should get. So a lot of people that consider themselves nominally in the middle class are not making $125,000 individually or 250,000 for a family. So what's the point of getting a 4-year degree from a college or university when, in contrast with everywhere else in the world, that would be a guarantee of middle class status, in the United States is not?
Well,
You see, we don't do things the right
I
way.
want to interject this because the conversation, that you guys are having right now as far as H-1B visas, for me, is superficial, which that is an aspect of it. When we look at the macro um, basis of H-1B visas in this country. But on a micro level, when you look at these corporations, because H-1B visas, is really being utilized for private entities. Not, yes, when we talk about young kids getting into STEM or going to school, or a sprinkle of 2 or 3 inventors, the majority of H-1B visas are people coming here hired by these private corporations. The corporations are abusing it to a certain degree because they are literally wiping out departments in their corporations and replacing it with H-1B visas, or exporting, shipping that work out to another country to save
Mhm.
money, or not even so
Right.
much to save money, to just have more money in their pockets. And so when we're talking about adults who are qualified to do the job, because a lot of these H-1B visas are being trained by the Americans who they're there to replace. Um, Either they have the same level of education, or American may have more level of education, which is why they're demanding more money, to where H-1B visa does not have the same level of degrees as an American. So they don't really have to pay them probably what I may be worth, because I may be worth more. So it's about how can I slash my budget, right? And what you want? They supposed to stay in the black and have our bonuses, So how can we make more money, get more business without spending more? And if it comes down to eliminating jobs of American citizens because we got to pay them benefits and 401ks and all this other stuff. So if I'm paying someone a salary of 100,000, but I'm technically paying out 160,000 because that 60,000 is going to their health care and their other benefits. That's the problem with the H-1B visas. Yes,
Well,
you may have some elites from certain countries, but the majority are not the elites. And that is just a
well,
fact.
what are we going to do about it?
May
Right.
I make a
So
suggestion?
good.
Go ahead.
I hear people say we have to get our companies producing again. We have to get our factories producing again. But the truth is, we need to get Americans producing again. America is an entrepreneurial people, and we're not encouraging that. We're not backing that.
Why are we allowing something else to happen?
Well, we're not,
Some
it's not, you can't, I can't, so I can't tell a CEO what to do with their
Yes, you
company.
can. No, but you can do this. You can't. The CEO can't set that up without legislation being passed that permits that or makes that an advantage. So why don't we ask the people we vote for, that we can directly vote for, meaning representatives in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, what their policies are on those things before we go cast a vote for them?
That is true.
And are
It,
we paying attention, or are we too concerned
but the
about,
problem
I can't
is,
be involved with politics because I
but
don't like
it's not against the law to H-1B visas were introduced in 1990 under George W. Bush, the first one. Now, did that so and it was allotted a certain amount of H-1B visas are allotted annually. But we have a problem right now because this current administration that's about to leave allowed open borders for the last 4 years. So everyone kind of forgot about the H-1B visas. However, going back a little bit more, Obama popularized H-1B visas. So even though it was introduced and passed under the 1990 Immigration Act, you didn't see as many or as much, and companies wasn't utilizing it as much. But under Obama administration, that's when it was a big boom of a lot of H1 visas coming in. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was a definite increase. Now, it's not against the law. It is legislation under the 1990 Administration Act, but I'm curious to know that over the decades, did they increase the number of H-1B visas, or they just never put a cap, which allows these private corporations to just bring in however many that they need?
Don't blame private
No,
corporations.
I do
Blame
blame them.
ourselves for electing representatives that facilitate these private corporations doing what they do. It's our fault because of who we vote for.
And it's not just that cut and dry. I
Well, yeah,
understand
but
what
it
I
is.
hear you, but it's not that cut and
Well, let
dry
me
at
just
all.
give you an example. Right here in Memphis, Ford Motor Company, right outside of Memphis, is trying to set up uh, a factory to produce electronic vehicles or electric vehicles. In the next 3 years, they want to have a factory that has 30,000 employees, 30,000 up and running. They have gotten into agreement with a company known as Blue Oval, which people assume has something to do with Ford. It does, but it's a South Korean company chartered in South Korea, and on their website, they say they've already hired 15,000 South Koreans who will be bringing their families over here to work at this factory just outside of Shelby County, where Memphis is located. So we elected in Memphis a bunch of idiots who are almost 100% Democrats to set this mess up. So here we go, same visa setup you're talking about. All of these people are supposed to be in line to get these visas so they can come over here. Nobody local will be employed working up in here. They've already hired 15,000 foreigners who haven't even got to the United States yet to be the primary employees. They have a program in place financed by the federal government, the state of Tennessee, and Ford Motor Company to train high school graduates in college in primary STEM and also do grad students with that. But the local Democratic officials haven't mentioned a damn thing about it to the local population. So very, very few people, young people in this area, are even knowledgeable of that, let alone able to take advantage of it. Now, you see, that's exclusively the problem with the people that this county elected, because most of the people they elected have little under the table deals where they want to be quick millionaires because of kickbacks, benefits, and other things, with having to change a township that has 5,200 residents into one that has 250,000 and do this all inside of 5 years. It's a huge amount of money that's available to be made, and the crooks are running around trying to line up to see who's going to get it. Meanwhile, we have 15,000 people from South Korea right now that will be allowed to take advantage of these visas, and a stupid mayor and a stupid chief of police and a stupid sheriff, all of whom are black, by the way, talking about setting up sanctuary cities to promote this, to have a free atmosphere for the immigrants, free from any kind of taint. So, and meanwhile, if any others just happen to sneak in, that's cool too. So, I
Well,
mean,
Well,
who's at fault for that?
oh,
People are trying to advertise this is what they're doing, and nobody pays attention.
I saw Judge Sarah, but she dropped down. So I'm gonna go to I'll go to Blazar. You
Thank you.
can
Yeah. So first, I want to say what's up to Judge Joe, man. I've been following your stuff for a long time. Not only your show, but your investigative stuff on Twitter, man. You're amazing. I'm glad to talk with you. Dana, I think that's how you pronounce it. Also, thank you for letting me speak, and yeah, thank you for letting me talk. So I saw here, I just did a quick Chat GPT search, which take it for a grain of salt. There's approximately 442,000 unique beneficiaries of the H1B visa program that's currently in the United States. And I wanted to bring up a couple of things. One, I've spoken with many, so far, Indians on Spaces, and I live in the tech area. I'm right outside of Microsoft's main campus in Redmond, Washington. And so basically, I get to see this from a neighborhood perspective firsthand. And what I keep getting told is that, hey, listen, the H-1B visa is not something that's handed out. The companies have to go to the American pool of candidates first. They have to be able to prove that they can't find an American to do the job, and only then are these people brought over here. And then I wanted to make sure that I tell people, listen, this is how the system works. What they'll do is they'll put up a ghost job. They'll put it up there knowing that they're not going to fill it so they can go through the rigmarole of looking like they found an American worker. And in the end, they'll bring in a worker from a foreign nation for a couple of reasons. One, they definitely have more alliances with the company, because in order to switch companies with the H-1B visa, you have to go through a whole system again of that particular company having to once again prove that they're the only ones who they can find to do the work, as opposed to an American. So it makes these people incredibly loyal to these companies. And then two, the people who take these jobs, they know the minute that they get fired, they're probably going to have to go back to India or China or to a second world, at least, country. And so it makes them incredibly malleable to whatever corporate policy that these people want to put in line. Okay, so that's the one point I wanted to make. And the other point I wanted to make, with the amount of money that we've given to Ukraine, which I calculated before, but it escapes me now, but it's something like almost $200 billion. And plus what we spent for the COVID vaccination and Operation Warp Speed, we need an Operation Warp Speed in this country to get people up to the codes and standards that we need to do these jobs. Like, if you need people to come in with the H-1B visa, even though I don't think they do, fine, I'll accept that. But in return, if it's a national emergency to the point that you need to bring in foreign people, then it should be a national emergency to the point that you need to get Americans up to speed to be able to do this work. And I don't think that American University, which is Trump's online platform that he's proposed, I don't think that's enough. Hey, listen, we had a terrorist attack that happened down in New Orleans. There was a nationwide manhunt for people who could be involved in this. At no time did the American government say, oh shit, we don't have enough FBI agents or Secret Service agents. We need to bring in some Ukrainians or some Russians. You know, if we have a situation where there's a forest fire, we don't say, oh shit, we need to bring in Latinos to help us with the forest fire. We tend to have a way to pool resources the way we need to when a situation occurs, as long as we can see an American actually doing this job. So I'm thinking that two things happen. One, I laugh at the fact that white people are angry, and I've been in their spaces saying, oh, I can't believe it. Somebody made a stereotype that there was a group of people that was better than you at something and you were worse. And they chose those people for work over you without actually checking. Oh, I wonder who told you that shit happens in this country before. And they didn't like me for saying that. But yeah, just in general, I guess I'm rambling, but what I wanted to say is that we need Trump to prioritize the American citizen and make an Operation Warp Speed to get us up to this level. We should spare no expense until most Americans can do these jobs and we can have true competition right here in the US.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Well said. And I agree with you. And for me, and I'm gonna hand it over to you, Judge. The bottom line, it's a money thing. If I'm able to save money as a corporation by any means necessary, that's what they're going to do. It's not because these people are brighter and better. And like Vivek said, American culture, we, dwell in mediocrity. No, it's just that these corporations is all about spending less but gaining more. Okay. Was you saying something, Judge? I don't hear you.
No, I didn't say anything. I just, it, like you said, well said. I mean, there's nothing to add to it.
And that's what I mean. It's like it's not a one trick pony. It's not just one or two or three things. This is layered. But and especially somebody in the chat is said to me, Dana, ain't nobody talking about regular jobs. You are responding emotionally. The average American don't do STEM. What don't you understand?
That's
Well,
a stereotype.
right.
It's a stereotype. So the idea that because the average American isn't quote unquote STEM ready, well, let's just look at the fact that they start this education off with children. If it was so difficult for the average American to learn, then why are they teaching it to children? Couple that with the fact that even if you go off to some fancy university and you get some computer science degree or some software engineering degree, fine, you have the basic operations on what it takes to make software. It still means when you go to that company, you don't know how they make their particular software. They train you on that. They're going to give you a code base and then they're going to tell you how they want it to be done. So first, they go to American colleges and universities. So we're not so backwards that we can't teach that because they get the skills right here in America. And then what you don't learn, the company teaches you. Also, a little known fact that goes on behind the scenes is if you get these jobs, they have boilerplate code, which means these are like pre-made codes that you can start your coding off of. There's also tons of places that you can go for resources. Like there used to be Stack Overflow and Quora. A lot. One of the biggest running jokes in tech was how much time people spent Googling what they needed to learn in order to make their jobs easier at the companies that they work at. So I think we need to stop this stereotyping of ourselves as lazy, stupid people. I mean, it's fun to do because we have a sense of humor in America, but there's really there's really feet on our necks right now. So what we need to do is stop joking around, take ourselves very seriously, and get ourselves up to speed and start whooping some ass. Because at the end of the day, all this will turn right around on its head. If we took these STEM programs just as serious in America as they say they take it in India and China, which you have to know the citizenry there, they actually don't. There's tons of underperforming people over there. But let's just say they have that. If we did that, immediately these same people would turn around and start crying about how America's not giving them an opportunity. And really, it just needs to be done. And I've got nothing against foreign workers coming over here if they've got the skill. What I don't like is one, the way they think about us as Americans while they take our money and go off and do whatever they're going to do. Two, they want to keep their own culture and be insular when they say it's better for them, better for their families. But funny for me, when they go to the bank and they go shopping, they're very American about that. They know that right away. They can adjust to getting Gucci real fast. And then three, their hiring practices. Once again, I live right by Microsoft. Bill Gates' house is in my neighborhood. I'm not a rich man. I just live amongst a regular class of people who live there. Let me tell you something that I'm going to tell you real fast. These people take this money and they do help their families and they give them a better education. But when they open their businesses, they hire other Indians. They hire other Chinese people. They don't think about us, even if it's flipping food at their local restaurant. They do not hire anybody but their own kind. Anybody else does that, they're going to get rolled out on some federal violations. And we are just allowing this to happen. So I'm just very passionate about this because really, when I was in tech, I had a very low job. I was just a software tester. I'm not an egghead per se, but I have the affinity to be higher at this. Every brother I saw in the neighborhood or sister I saw in the neighborhood, I would stop and I would talk to them and I would tell them, hey, you know what? It's not as complicated over there as you think. You can get in there real good. If you have a foreign language, they need localization. If you can spot a bug in text, or if a button works and it doesn't work the right way, you can get a job doing that. I was very much about reaching out to the community, but not just Black people, people who were in need. I would tell them these things. The Indians, the Chinese, the people who they're bringing over here, they're good enough, but they're not going to do that because they don't have that sensibility. It's very much kill or be killed, or better yet, there's just a competitive modus operandi where they want to do better than every other person from where they're from so they can come to America and live better. We don't necessarily have that mindset. We want to take what we know and give back to our communities and help out other people. And if we don't get on the ball right now, there's going to be two classes. And what people say about that technocracy, tech overlords, it's really going to sink in for the average American. And I'm at the front line and I'm telling you guys, you need to take this seriously.
I actually just sent you a message.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree.
I do, and I agree too. I don't know. Abert, you must. Are you an immigrant? Because he says, Dana, it's not a money thing. You all are not studying STEM. Well, who are you all? And a lot of these corporations, about FedEx or insurance companies, that's not really a STEM based companies. So stop focusing just on STEM, Abert, because outside of STEM, a lot of jobs are being replaced by H1B visas, right? And those
The
people,
medical industry.
the medical industry, because I did a video and I talked about I was in the medical industry and they wiped out departments. It was thousands of people they laid off to replace for H1B visas and ship jobs to India. Those people were not more qualified, and they were less qualified because some of us had to train them. So I get the STEM thing. America do need to invest in Americans when it comes to STEM, but there are other corporations that have been hiring thousands of Americans that are now saying goodbye because I could bring these people in and only pay them a salary and not benefits. So I'm saving millions of dollars. And I really don't give a damn how you feel about it. And they're doing this by the thousands, which is why the vet turns around and says that the H1B visa system is broken, because now these people are being treated by, like, quote unquote indentured servants. Well, it's a whole lot better than where they came from. That's number one. And then two, when people want to have this argument, well, these H1B visa people, they're smart because they in STEM and all this other stuff. Well, why are they not making their country great if they're so highly skillful and intelligent? So yeah, get off that y'all people type thing.
It's a dog eat dog environment over there. Like the people, like I said, I don't have a problem with Indians or Chinese, but I do study cultures of the world. It's just something I do because I want to travel one day. And they'll tell you in a heartbeat, listen, if you go over to India, everybody's vying for these universities that teach this stuff. So they have to beat out everybody where they are to get to those places just to be in the top. Then the people who are in the top of those fields, they have to then compete against each other to get these H1Bs to come to America and various other countries. So on one hand, they earned it, and I'm not taking that part from them. But the idea that they would leave these people over there in the second and third world to make their lives better, and most of them don't do anything to really help the situation back there. Is that the type of culture that you want in America? Right? We can only take on so many of these people and also teach them the American ideals about how we have communities, about what our values are. And it's very different from their values. So, I'm not going to take up your time. I'm actually just going to drop down. But what I just wanted to say before I do is say that one more time. You other people in this country, especially white people, you sat there and you laughed at Black Americans and African Americans, and you told us that we needed to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps when you knew damn well they were picking you over us based off of perceived primitiveness of our culture and our society. And all you did was laugh and put the money in your pocket. And now that it's happening to you, you don't like that, do you? You don't like the fact that these corporate CEOs consider the Indians and the Chinese whiter than you. Okay? So you got two choices. You can either sit there and whine like fucking babies, or you can pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But this time, break bread with your fellow Americans. Make it easier for your fellow Americans. If you don't like foreigners from Africa, then deal with the African Americans. If you don't like foreigners from China, deal with the Chinese Americans, deal with the Indian Americans, deal with everybody who's here, or suffer the consequences of your, I was going to curse, your blinking white privilege and leave us out of the damn conversation because we told you what this country was about. Thank you for letting me speak, you guys.
I appreciate you coming up, and I appreciate everything you said. And I actually sent you a message, and I'm gonna go to El Hotep. And anybody else want to request to come up, please do so now, because I'm about to start winding it down in about 30 minutes. I'm tired. Go ahead, El Hotep.
Hey, what's up, Dana? Hey, what's up, Jeff? Yeah, I think a lot of this comes down to culture, right? Western culture, Western style of thinking versus a foreigner style of thinking. I had a friend of mine whose cousin came from Jamaica. This was like back in '07, right? And he was taking trigonometry already at eighth grade. The education system, let's be honest, it failed us, right? So a lot of this comes down to what we prioritize and what we are setting ourselves up for the next 15, 20 years from now. I know a lot of people. I just had this conversation last year with a black couple that's teaching STEM. And the average person, they think they hear stems or steams or whatever, they think you're talking about a tree stem. A lot of people aren't really engaged in this type of stuff because they think it's or it's nerdy. Um, but what they don't understand is they're using technology all the time. Cashless payment, FaceTiming, all of us aren't together physically, but we're connected digitally. So I think a lot of this applies to what we're focused on. A lot of us are focused on bullshit. We know more about LeBron James than we know about our own selves, right? So I think a lot of this comes down to what are we focused on? Where are we spending our time? Um, let's be real, as Black Americans, we do need to get ahead of this because if they do allow foreign workers to come, they're going to place them in Black neighborhoods. They're not going to put them in white neighborhoods. I've seen this shit happen when I was in Los Angeles. So I think Black people need to get on the ball, especially Black Americans. It's time you wake your ass up and stop focusing on stupid shit. And especially how a lot of this stuff applies to immigration. Trump needs to get rid of that 14th Amendment, and a lot of Black Americans need to champion that. And that's all I got to say.
May I ask you a question? Why should the Fourth Amendment be repealed?
Well, I'm talking about the necessarily the birth citizen. Um, well, one thing I will say about that is because what it does, especially in this conversation, let's say they allow more foreign workers to come, right? Or, I'll give you a better example. Kamala Harris, perfect example, right? Her father's from Jamaica, her mother's from India, right? Now, her father came here, both of her parents came here on a student visa. Now, she ends up being a citizen because, yes, she was born here. Now, in some way, I don't know how that would work as far as the immigration laws and stuff like that, but her parents, I would guess, they would be allowed to stay here, right?
They wouldn't be allowed to stay unless their visas were extended, if that was the case.
Well, I'll give you an example. I got a lot of friends who parents brought them here illegally, and just because of DACA, you know what I'm saying, their parents and them were allowed to stay. And just because they live in California and they went to a Cal State school, that allows them to be Los Angeles police officers, California state police officers, etc. The only thing they might not can do is enlist in the military and stuff like that. But
They can probably enlist in the military. By the way, over the last 200 years of American history, joining the military has been a sure pathway to citizenship. They've had a lot of people who were not U.S. citizens who joined the U.S. military, or in particular, the Navy and law enforcement. That's been classic over the last 75, 80 years. But, see, it's this. You said something about being familiar with the culture. Ordinarily, if somebody did it the right way and got in line to become a citizen, they have to go through courses, history, American history thing, stuff that would be social studies or political science to understand why our system is as it is, how it works, how the courts work, how the legislative body works. They get tested on it. They would have to go through things like, what is the culture? What does this mean? What does that mean? And they get tested. And after they pass all the tests, they've attended all of the lectures, then they get sworn in by a federal judge. And if you talk to them, they know a lot more about American history, the details of Americana, than your typical citizen does, because they've been compelled to study it. So I don't have any problems with that. It's just when you get 10 million plus people in that nobody checked, that just can walk across, and you don't know who the hell they are. Something is badly wrong with that. And the question launches itself into one of these big screen advertisements on a Times Square billboard. Why was this allowed, and why was this set up? What was their point?
Yeah, and that's where I agree with you. I mean, it's kind of like it looks like it's done on purpose to just dumb down Western civilization on purpose. Um, because I know a lot of people my age, and I'm in my early 30s, that don't speak like this. They're not interested in engaging in these conversations. They're talking about stuff like Drake and Kendrick Lamar still, and I understand, I get it. It's entertainment, but you can't be distracted off of the bullshit sometimes. And I think that's when you have to have a strong mind. And it seems like a lot of people now have weak minds.
Well, have you heard the phrase that Caesar coined 2040 some years ago? He said, give the peasants, or he called it the mob, give the mob bread and circuses, and they won't care what their betters do. In other words, feed them and entertain them. And that's what's going on. That still works. See, there are
Yeah,
types of humans, and like 95% of humanity is the type 1 personality. They think in terms of black and white. They don't think they can figure stuff out. Complicated stuff is mysterious to them, and what they want is fearless leader to show them the way. They are entirely too susceptible to entertainment and getting fed. They sit in front of television sets looking at sports all day long, every day they're off. They fixate on stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with making their tomorrows better. And they're very ignorant, meaning lacking knowledge and information on who they vote for, or what the issues are, or the sometimes complex, sometimes simple things that impact what they get to take home, how much they get to spend, and what they have for recreation. So it's amazing to me. Um, why don't they pay attention to those things that count? Well, give them bread and circuses, or in Latin, it's done pane e secalcie. Don't give to them bread, pane, and circuses, secalcie. It goes on from there, and that's been a formula that is time tested. It appears to have worked real well and still does.
Um, I want to get to Sexy Raw. Just real quick before I get to Sexy Raw. Um, Abert or Albert in the chat says, Dana, the first thing you said is, was I an immigrant? Typical ignorance. And then you say always got to get racist. First of all, I didn't say anything about race or being racist, dummy. Second of all, you say y'all people. And that's why I asked, are you an immigrant? Because when somebody says y'all, that means you are separating yourself from everyone else. And I was talking about the American people versus H1B visas. And you say y'all. So you placed yourself as something other than. I don't know who you are or what you are, and I really don't care. Go ahead.
that's a tether. Appreciate you, Dana and Judge. But yeah, I think that's a tether though. But I'll fall back. But appreciate you guys. I hope y'all have a good night and happy New Year.
Same to you. Thank you. I appreciate you, El Hotep. Go ahead, Sexy Ra. I'm gonna bring Blazer back up. And anybody else want to request to come up, please do it now because after these two, I'm just gonna close out.
Well, good evening, Dana. Happy
Hi.
New Year
Happy
to
New Year.
you and Judge Joe Brown. Happy New Year.
Well, while we whoopee and happy New Year to you too.
Well, Judge, you probably don't you closed out last year really well with me on the campaign trail. You were mighty on that mic in Atlanta, Georgia. You remember that, Judge?
Which one of the times are you talking about?
The one that was downtown at the Capitol
Oh,
with
you mean where Fanny sent that thing out, be quiet, and we said go to
yes.
hell? Yeah.
Hilarious. Love it. And I got it all on video. But I wanted to talk about the H1B visas, right? And us being in technology. The fact of the matter is when you look at our history, and I'm saying our meaning the freedmen and that 14th Amendment. But when you look at our history and how much we've contributed to America and STEM, right, and STEAM, it's phenomenal to me that individuals think that we haven't been at the spearhead of technology in America, of Western culture. When you can look at the history of Granville T. Woods, and even today in our most modern technology with our personal computers and peripherals, you're going to have a patent with a Black male by the name of Dr. Mark Dean that still teaches. So, the fact that we now have immigrants taking over another industry from Americans that have pioneered this industry in our country, right? I have serious issues with it. Now, I voted for Trump mainly because I, one, support him challenging the interpretation of the 14th Amendment and how it's now been interpreted for others to utilize it to have, children on the soil and take our birthrights. That's how I feel about it. And the fact of the matter that now you also have another immigrant group being able to come into America and get settled basically on top of Americans that have been here pioneering industries. So yeah, I voted for Trump because of illegal immigration and I want the deportations to happen, but I'm also now pressuring for an immigration moratorium because we have a lot of Black Americans that can do these jobs. They can just be as trained as well as anybody else. And then on top of that, we have our ex convicted felons, mass incarcerated individuals that have come out of prison, and a great deal of them have been wrongfully convicted. So you have a labor class here, right, that can take on those jobs. So when I hear people saying that Americans can't do these jobs and we got to go outside and import when we have brilliant minds, brilliant minds we're not investing in our own country. And our education system has been socially engineered, right? That you remove STEM and STEAM out of our education. So you see where I'm going? So I have serious issues with any Americans at this point in time saying that it's okay for us to continue to import another group of individuals or beings into this country and take over another industry that our people have been pioneering in. I have issues with that. I land.
Okay, you know what the O1 visas are?
I know there's many. I mean, they got
The
South
O1s,
American farmers
That's
coming in
supposed to be
here
the
on
highest one,
H
right?
the
visas.
O
Yeah.
the O1 visas are the ones that deal with don't care where they come from, let them in. We want them at all costs because they'll help out. I tell you, I used to have a ranch out in Ojai, California. Okay, had horses on it, other stuff. And I could always tell when subcontractors were bringing in illegals who did not have a green card. You know how? It's interesting. They'd due in at 8 o'clock. They'd show up at 7:15. They were entitled to a 15-minute morning break. They wouldn't take it. Depending upon the contract, 45 minutes or 1 hour for lunch. They'd take 15 minutes. They were entitled to a 15-minute afternoon break. They wouldn't take it. They were set to leave at 4:30, and they would leave at 7 if it was daylight saving time, or they would knock off and ask you politely if they could bring cervezas. And I had citrus plants, and they would want to know if they could get a lime off of a tree. Say, go ahead, and they were polite and orderly. Their cousins, who were American citizens, would, just like everybody else, would be late, take too long for the breaks, be disorganized when it came back from lunch, and you'd have to go down there and supervise personally to get everybody back to work. So one thing I did notice is I could just say, that person, I want to see their green card. They don't have one, do they? Well, how can you tell? Because they act like they've got a real serious work ethic. Whereas everybody else I know has a green card or is an American citizen. They're just as lazy as everybody else. Not everybody, but too many, because they feel entitled and they don't feel like they have to give their ultimate to get something. I guess that's only supposed to be if they're playing basketball, football, baseball, doing tennis, or something like that.
Well, Judge, I have a story for you. Right here that touch, that I grew up with someone that literally started his computer business from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
Literally sold it, started with his wife, and then they partnered. It was some guys I know from my neighborhood, right? They partnered together, built the business up to it became a $25 million business when they sold it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know people like that. I grew up with people like that. So, for me, when I see this tech stuff happening, I know better, right? I know because I have lived it with other individuals and watched them from the ground up, from nothing, build their tech company into a $25 million business.
Yeah. It works sometimes. It's just you have to put a lot of hard work in. But too many people born in America, grew up in America, they seem to think that they're owed what they dream of or what they wish for rather than having to earn it. You know, that Walt Disney thing, when you wish upon a
I
star.
think we should be entitled to certain things
What?
here, right? We have built and developed and advanced some things that we should, as Americans, be able to relax and
Why should
enjoy.
we relax?
Yeah.
Why? No,
Well,
hold on,
why
hold
do
on.
we have to work ourselves to death and not
Because
enjoy any of our stuff?
everybody in the world is shooting at us, so we're relaxing, and we fall.
No, 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 no. You have to be able to enjoy
No, you
some of
don't.
your
No,
moments.
no, 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 no. See, some people, and this is an interesting difference. I know billionaires and millionaires. Hell, I'm one myself. And the bottom line is we enjoy what is called work, and other people have to relax and don't do it. See, we do 50, 60, 65 hours a week and get 3, 4 hours of sleep a night, and other people got to get their 8 hours of rest and got to have their TV programs. That's where the difference comes in. And then, see, this is a country that, until within the lifetimes of parents, grandparents, was a frontier, and there was stuff that would literally kill you out there if you weren't on top of the game. So you didn't have an opportunity to relax. You had very harsh winters that would kill you off, droughts that would wind up causing you to starve to death. You had cattle that might come down and trample you. You had Native Americans who didn't particularly like getting dispossessed of their land. You had storms, lightning, all sorts of other things, diseases for which there were no cures. It was very dangerous, and you could practically let anybody in because when they got put in this kind of environment, the ones that couldn't cut it, they didn't just say, well, I can collect a check because I can't make it. They died. Something killed them. So there are the
I'm not
Chinese.
saying that
The,
people shouldn't work,
yeah,
Judge,
but
but you
see, the
should
Chinese,
you work hard, you should be able to
yeah,
enjoy some
it,
pleasure in your
well,
life.
why? Who says that? I've been in a situation where it was 20 some degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. And it was not a situation where, even though I was dead tired, all of the rest of the things wanted to take a break, you couldn't because you die. See, that's the kind of thing that's going on. Or I was a certified master diver under Patty, and I'm down there, and there's some real live 15-foot long ferocious tiger sharks. And you right up close and personal with the doggone things. You got some things down there you can't just say, "Oh, I want a time out." You know,
So let me ask you this then, Judge. So are you telling me that we should be accepting of um Nancy Pelosi needing a hip replacement on a walker coming into the chambers? We got
well, but they not see.
McConnell head bandaged up and he
What are you
glitching
gonna do
on
about it?
national
What are you gonna
television.
do about it?
How does that help us,
But yeah,
Judge?
but what are you going to do about it since his constituency, her constituency, repeatedly returns her or him to office? See, there's an interesting thing about our reaction to congressmen. It's we want term limits, but the interesting thing is you like your own congressman, but you hate everybody else's or think they're scoundrels, but you get to vote the person you like back in. They do too. So it's interesting. Everybody else's congressman is hated except yours, generally, not always. And the point is get ready for this. Some people aren't being paid for their labor. They don't have to move at all. You're getting paid for their uh, experience and learned status when it comes to what they're doing and being wise in the ways of the world. That's what you have them in for. But we want new and improved, youthful, whatever. So you want a 25, 26 years old that doesn't know how to wipe his or her ass real well.
No. We need about a
You talking about
anywhere from
apprenticeships?
No, I'm
That's what we
talking
need to bring
about
back,
we need
apprenticeship.
40 to
somebody
50,
young,
40
old
to
as
50.
see China. You don't even qualify for some offices until you are a senior citizen because they don't think you know enough about life. We like youthful things. He's too old. He's as long as you can do the job, and what they're paying you for is your mind.
What about the one that's in the nursing home?
Well, I
Where
mean,
was she in Nevada?
is their mind
She's
sharp?
collecting a check in the
I
nursing
mean,
home.
is their
Go ahead,
mind
Judge.
sharp? That's what you're paying the person for, the sharpness of their mind, not whether they can do physical labor. But really, seriously, there's an old saying that goes to that that's been circulating on X lately. I posted about it. Some other people have too. It's nothing I invented, but it says this: strong men make good times. Well, hold on. Hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men, and weak men make hard times. In other words, right now, you see, we have good times. It's relatively safe. You don't have to worry about highwaymen or the Sioux or the Arapaho trying to take your scalp. Or if you're one of those, you don't have to worry about the 7th Cavalry coming and committing a wounded knee massacre on you. You don't have to worry about a 800-900 pound grizzly bear taking your life, or generally, unless you live in California, a mountain lion deciding to have you for a snack. You don't have to worry about a wolf pack hunting you down for a quick dinner for the pack, when it starts getting cold, is relatively safe. So we are in one of those good time periods that's producing weak people because it's safe. And we feel we are entitled to enjoy ourselves, and we are entitled to have good times, and we are entitled to having recreational moments. But you see, a lot of people in the rest of the world don't get that, and they're hard, and they are looking at us and saying these guys are getting awful weak, so let's take them out from being at the top. And you want a parallel, look at Great Britain 100 years ago. The Royal Navy controlled the seas of the world. The sun never set on the British Empire. Now look at it. It's a third rate country whose former colonies, whether you're talking about Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Kenya, South Africa, India, Pakistan, are all much better off or more powerful or more advanced than Great Britain. They took it too easy. So just consider that.
I want to go to Blazar and then Maria, and then you guys that are already up here, you could do your final say, and then we'll wrap it out.
Okay, thank you. Real quick, I just wanted to tell a story and then I have an anecdote. So just real quick, I was having this conversation about H1B visas in a room that I frequent a lot. So, we talk a lot up in there. And so generally people there know about my thoughts on the Black community, the Black experience in America, the things that we've been through. And I specifically, when this conversation was brought to the H1B visa situation, somebody explained to me sort of the same points that Vivek sort of brings, but me and this person know each other. We live locally. He's in tech, and then I'm in general business, right? So I'm telling the situation from a Black point of view, and he's explaining the situation from the Vivek point of view. And anyway, we ended up getting into a heated debate over, excuse me, over sort of like what is the relevance to the conversation. And as we were getting more and more heated, he ended up saying to me, he says, hey, listen, this is probably why people like you shouldn't be in tech, because we don't like your point of view and we don't want that in our workplace. Meanwhile, it wasn't like I was speaking ill about anybody. I was just explaining the the inequity of being Black in this country. And so when he said that to me, at first it didn't register. I kept talking and going back and forth with him. And then later on, it dawned on me that I was like, hey, yeah, you know what? This person does have it right. They really do. And I said it like this. They really don't want your Black ass in their company. They really don't want your Black ass in their sciences, in their maths, in their STEM programs. And it's up to us to do it on our own, because he just said what it was. Do you know how much money I could drain out of a company if I got anybody to say that to me when I was working at these corporations? No, that's not the way they go about it. They create a culture that makes it impossible to be yourself if you are like the rest of your culture. And I don't know if that's necessarily as true for Asians or as true for whites as it is for Blacks. I know about that. That was my experience as a Black person. So I wanted to make sure every time I go into a space where they are talking about education or technology or anything like that, I bring back those persons' words so that one day we can rise up and make him eat those words, because we can absolutely do it. Okay, and then the anecdote that I wanted to say. Jensen Huang, he runs NVIDIA. If you don't know, if you don't know who NVIDIA is as a company, you should get on what they're doing. Like, they make some of the most innovative products in technology right now. They're basically the power behind most of the AI softwares and companies that are pretty much worldwide. They pretty much have a lock on the industry. So what they did is they just invented something a while back called the NVIDIA Blackwell. And it says here it's a new GPU microarchitecture developed by NVIDIA as a successor for their Hopper and Ada Lovelace microarchitectures. It was officially announced at the NVIDIA OTC 2024. Now, what is the Blackwell named after? The Blackwell is named after David Harold Blackwell. He's a Black mathematician, y'all. Okay, So Jensen Huang, that pretty much has AI, and the tech companies by the balls, by the way, because literally his architectures are so far and beyond everybody else's. This is the power behind Grok. This is the power behind a lot of things that are coming down the pipe. The future that we have coming our way, NVIDIA is directly involved with that. He knows our greatness. He knows about David Harold Blackwell. So we have this in us. We just need to make more David Harold Blackwells, and we'll be doing just fine. But you remember what that tech worker says. I'm not going to dox him, but he's very high up in the IT space. So his attitude is an attitude that is replete throughout technology, and they will never tell you to your face because they know very well with those NDAs how to keep from being sued. But since we're on Twitter and he's got a fake profile, he felt free to say what everybody else black who's ever been in tech knows. You remember what he says. He doesn't want your black ass there unless you're going to coon it up, sell your people out, or turn your backs on them. So if we're gonna fight, we gotta do it together. You don't have to stay in these neighborhoods or you can do it however you want to help us do it, but we gotta do it together.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna go to
Okay,
Maria.
let me
Oh,
interject something.
okay. After you, then Maria.
Very quickly, National Basketball Association, NBA. Do you think anybody these days wants to give a damn about what somebody's ethnicity is when it comes to playing basketball, or whether or not they can perform and get hired or get the bonuses of being a first round draft choice on merit, or is it being DEI when you hire a basketball player? Nobody cares because it's about performance. What has to happen is a corner has to be turned when it comes to the person, the ethnic group of the person being associated with competence. There was an uptick in black criminal defense lawyers getting business after Johnny Cochran successfully defended OJ. Why? Because you're looking at this black man, lead counsel, take this controversial case, and after listening to this clown, Nancy Grace, tell lies about the evidence, he prevailed anyway. So he looks like a magician. So now people say, well, wow, that black person can really do it. So maybe black people can do it. I'll go hire somebody black because I want the best. Same thing Jackie Robinson did for baseball. Same thing Kenny Washington did, who was the first black that got hired for the NFL. The Rams hired him. He was in the UCLA backfield with Jackie Robinson, who, by the way, never played baseball until the Dodgers hired him. He was in the same backfield at UCLA playing football with a guy named Don Barksdale, who was the first person that the Lakers hired as an NBA black player. And when they got a chance to see these guys, they said, oh, wow. Now, our thing about moving up, we had Barack Obama who had the paint job, but what did he do? He just effed up in there and did nothing for anybody at all. So he didn't hit the home run, he didn't throw the touchdown pass, he just zeroed out. So now nobody particularly is interested in somebody black breaking into something. But if you break into something and when you get that shot, you really bust it and you perform, then you open up doors for other people, and then nobody cares what you are as long as you can do the job. See, that's how it generally works.
All right, I'm gonna go to Maria.
Thank you so much for the privilege of having the microphone. Uh, Hello, Judge Brown, Native American here, and also into horses. So you had me laughing, carrying on with your comments. But it is true. It works with horses in the pecking order as well. You got some lazy horses and you got overachievers. Um, I am very disappointed with the continuation of using race as an excuse. I'm a Native American. I'm so poor. I rubbed two plug nickels together to get a spark to get some leaves on fire. We also have poor whites that are in North Carolina that are still homeless because FEMA wouldn't give them the time of day when Hurricane Helena. The Amish came down to make little houses, and the feds thumbed down. You got them in campers, they're freezing in the frozen winter time and stuff like that. Being poor does not single out any race, any creed, or any color or religion. You're poor, you're poor. Also, too, lacking today is respect. I have sadly witnessed in this room, and it's probably because, it's not a focus, but I'm old. I'm in my 70s. And respect is not a demand, it is a behavior and attitude. You give and you take, you show and you demonstrate. So I think to get on the racism will disappear if you constantly uh, keep it reined in. You can have your personal biases and stuff like that, but don't make it about skin color. God created all of us. We are of one with God. And I just wish for the world to just get off the excuses. If you work hard, you will benefit from your hard labors. And Judge Brown is one of those examples who has worked his butt off all his life and gives respect and has demonstrated respect. And it is so sad to see that people talk over him. And it's just very, very sad to witness. And that's what's wrong with America today. We have forgotten our boundaries of behavior. Our attitude is wrong. But we're in Sodom and Gomorrah times. Loose and frilly and be me is not going to work anymore. We're under attack by outside forces that are evil and satanic, and we need to understand that we're either on God's side or the good, loving God that we have, or evil Satan, which is a divider, who is the God of war, who is a God of hate. And we have to make a personal choice. It's up to you and all of us to take which path we want to take. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to give my gratitude to Judge Brown for being you. And Miss Dana, thank you so very much for the honor of having your microphone.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming up. Quick
Thank you,
question.
ma'am. And
Yeah.
my grandmother was a Choctaw, so I guess I am too. But thank you very much. Appreciate your commentary.
Yeah, I don't. Let me just say this though, because, well, I would say tonight, nobody wasn't. I didn't hear any disrespect. People are allowed to push back and state their opinions. Um, so I don't. I'm not sure when you said. I guess is someone disrespecting a judge. I didn't hear it. I don't know, Judge. Did you? I didn't pick that up tonight. So I think people were pretty
I
much.
think our caller was talking about earlier episodes. She said she's a frequent listener.
Oh,
No. What I meant was people talking over the judge, other people talking over other people, that kind of respect.
okay. All right. Okay.
I get what you're saying. It's why they have the guy sitting up in the bat cape at the bench in the courtroom, so he can take all of the hotshot lawyers and keep them in line. So you use decorum and order to carefully present points rather than things degenerating into chaos. I get it.
Um. Oh, okay. I guess that person requested to come up by accident. All right. Good. So that's it. I'm tired. It's been. I know it's been close to 3 months, Judge, since we did a space, and I.
Not 3 months.
Okay, 2.5. It's been over.
Not 2.5. 3 weeks.
No, no. Oh no. It's been over a month.
Really?
Yes. It's been 2 months. It's been two
I don't think it's
months.
been 2 months. Has
I
it
can
been since
tell you,
October?
I can tell you right now. Let me be exact. Give me a second. Because the last time we did a live, it was, well, where's the date? Oh, November 19th.
Well,
So
that's not 3 months.
no, but it's 1 month and a half, almost two.
Well, that's 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks. But either way, and then I think before that it was a break or whatever. But anyway, I got to get back into the groove of doing, because remember this would be like 3-4 hours. I don't feel like doing that tonight. Do you?
No, I don't feel like doing it tonight.
Right, and I think this was a good discussion. And then too, listen, if you are available next week, because this is technically spaces that you hold, I just facilitated. I kind of do want to keep talking about the H1B visas, migrate the illegal migrants, the border, and everything like that, because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on under under those things. And I also want to, next week, if we do, well, the next time we do a space, I want to bring in more numbers when it comes to the H1B visas, and just be a little bit more specific, because like I said, it's not just one trick pony. It's not just in one industry of STEM. This is throughout. And yeah, it is being abused, more so by corporations, because they're saving millions of dollars. But I do want to say I really do appreciate everybody that came up to speak. And I appreciate what you guys had to say. And I appreciate everybody who is listening on YouTube. Appreciate you guys. And NWA sent a chat. NWA King Corsos. Who do I contact to book Judge Joe Brown on a podcast? And you could just send me an email, danawiththedata@gmail.com, and I'll send you the proper information and stuff like that. So thank you for the super chat, and everybody listening here on X, and happy new year to everybody. Maybe next week, if the judge is not busy, we'll do another space, or the week after that, maybe twice a month. I don't know, but Tuesdays is a designated day. And also subscribe to my X account. What is it? The real Dana number 7. So go ahead, Judge, and close out the space.
Okay, everybody have a good time. And I guess since this is the first of the year, first X space of the year, Happy New Year. So stay focused, work hard, enjoy yourself, and enjoy what you do. And I'm out of here.